Hi, good afternoon everyone, it's Caroline here, and it's that time of the afternoon again, cup of tea o'clock. So I've just spent this morning doing more training on YouTube videos, on setting up my YouTube accounts and Google accounts and all sorts of stuff for my YouTube channel and when I start advertising on YouTube. But I thought I'd have a little bit of a break away from all the training and come talk to you lovely people. So what I really want to talk about today is about conversations. So inspired by a web meeting that I was on at lunchtime with the group that I'm currently working with and training through, and it came up in that meeting about conversations. Now, it's about the power of conversation, meaningful conversation with another human being. Now, I don't know about you, but I feel certainly, especially since smartphones have become more pervasive everywhere, and you just see everybody walking around on their smartphone, sitting in a pub. You know, it's two people sitting in a pub. As soon as one of them walks away, the other one can't just sit there and be with themselves. They have to get their smartphone out. Now, I'm guilty of it too. But I do feel like as a population we're losing the ability to have meaningful conversations. Now, by meaningful conversations, I don't mean talking to somebody else about how was your day, what have you been up to, how's work, stuff like that. That's not meaningful. That's small talk. That's just a way to start a conversation, I suppose. But I'm talking about meaningful conversations and what they can bring to you in terms of connection, because I feel like as a world, as a population, we're getting more and more disconnected with each other, more and more living in our own little world. Now, it's interesting for me to say this as somebody who works from home and half the time barely leaves the house, and doesn't actually interact with as many people as I used to, although I do interact with people online these days. But what I wanted to talk about was a situation last week, a little story about when I had a knock on the door. Now, working from home, people come round and I answered the door, and it was two gentlemen, and it turned out they were Jehovah's Witnesses. And what was interesting to me was that in the past I would have either not answered the door. I would have checked firstly who was outside there, thought, don't know who they are, or they look, I could see them carrying a Bible in their hand or something like that, and thought, God, no, not talking to them. I'm just going to pretend I'm out and pretend the house is empty. But I thought, no, let's be open and see what happens. So I opened the door and they introduced themselves. These two lovely gentlemen called, found out later, they were called Jeff and Kevin. And long story short, I ended up having a 15-20 minute conversation with them on the doorstep, and it was fascinating. Now, this is me, I suppose, where I am at the moment, being open-minded about people in particular, but also about just opportunities and about everything. Because I've learnt myself through experience in particularly the last 6 months since I started on this course I'm doing and working with the people I'm working with, that if we close ourselves off to people, to connections, to possibilities, to ideas, based on our preconceptions, we are potentially giving up opportunities for ourselves for moving on with our lives, or for doing something bigger or better or more exciting, or learning the next lesson we need to take, or expanding our horizons, or whatever it is. We're missing out on opportunities. And so through this conversation that I had with these two gentlemen, I learned all about them. One was a nuclear chemist, the other one I'm not quite sure what he does for a living, but he's a motorbiker, and we had that in common. We chatted about that, and we had a really good interaction. And I started talking to them a bit about my spirituality, which is a journey that I've been on this year, and I'm sure I'll talk about in another video. But and I learned some stuff from them. I learned stuff about the Bible that I didn't know before, about God and how his name has been taken out of many different Bibles, and how many different variations of the Bible there are. So I was enriched with knowledge through this conversation, but and it was a really good exchange. But there was a pamphlet that they wanted to give me, and but they didn't have any spare copies of this pamphlet. And so they directed me to the website, said, you know, go look at Jehovah's Witnesses website, there's lots of information on there. And I thought, and I was interested, just because I'm interested to see how religion and spirituality kind of, whether they are essentially the same thing, just with different wrappers on. So anyway, they toddled off, shut the door, didn't think anything of it, went about my day, and got back, I think it was later on that evening or the next day or something, and found that Kevin had been back, found a copy of this pamphlet and put it through my letterbox. And a little post-it note on the top saying, to Caroline, you know, found this, wanted to give it to you, well, thank you for the conversation, from Kevin. And I thought, I just felt really touched that somebody had taken the time and the effort to do that, you know, and that had come out of the conversation we'd had. And so that, you know, if I hadn't opened the door and been open to a conversation, I wouldn't have learnt things I'd learnt, and I wouldn't have had that feeling of when I saw that pamphlet come through the door. And so it's not only about listening and allowing other people to have their voice and their say, but it's about being open-minded to what they say and listening to what's behind it as well. And because, you know, there could be benefits for you as well. But I also feel that that I gave to them by listening to them and giving them their opportunity, and the conversations we had, you know, I lifted their day a little bit as well, put a smile on their face. So, you know, it was a meaningful conversation because it has left a few, you know, seeds in the back of my mind with the stuff I'm thinking about at the moment. And I do intend to actually have a little look at the pamphlet. You know, I don't intend to become a Jehovah's Witness. I don't think it's for me. But as I say, with the experiences I've had this year, I wouldn't rule anything out right now, because I'm doing things and meeting people and having experiences that I would never have conceived of before. By allowing myself to be open to things, my world has expanded massively. So don't be closed-minded and don't judge people based on how they look or what you think they believe. You know, actually get to know them and question it and see whether they have something to offer you, and whether they have a perspective that might add a little bit of something to your existing perspective or change your perspective a little bit. But just also, I feel like I made a new connection there as well. And in fact, Kevin came around again yesterday, knocked on the door to say hello with it, and brought a new friend along. And he wouldn't have done that if I'd have shut the door to him the first time. So, yeah, all about connections, people. And spending the time to actually listen to what other people have to say, and not judging it or not discounting it out of hand without actually listening. You know, if you listen and still decide you don't agree or don't believe, that's fine. At least you've given it a try. So yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more about conversations, folks. So there we go. And this is a conversation too. So if you have anything you'd like to say, add it in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you, and let's continue this conversation. All right, I will go back to admiring my lovely view, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you, lots of love, bye bye.